So, over the last couple of days in the PlayStation scene, we've seen a number of folks discussing this ability to run a almost custom firmware on our PlayStation 4 in order to keep a semi-permanent jailbreak installed on it. I have read through the threads and wanted just to kind of break that down to all of the viewers out there. Now, we're going to begin with the tweet that kind of started it all. And this one came through Zeko Shell and it said, "We might have semi permanence on a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 soon." Now, do keep in mind that at least in this initial tweet, the word custom firmware wasn't said, but we did see a little bit later on where the definition of semi permanence was basically like custom firmware. Now, like custom firmware and custom firmware is obviously two different things, with custom firmware always remaining persistent on the device. So, custom firmware for like a PlayStation 3, for example, with EvilNat, where you just boot up your console and it is already jailbroken and it is ready to go, versus like what we do today, where we jump over to a web browser or we use pp-pon. Now, one of the people that is obviously involved in this that has this working is Alizif. And the thread starts just kind of like this right here. It says, "It's a bolt-on feature for existing exploits. It's really not an exploit itself, so much as a misconfiguration allowing certain things that shouldn't. A bolt-on itself is patchable on the PS5 for sure, and the PS4, there should be a way to work around it if they patch it." There was another message here that said, "For exploits that don't require any hardware, it doesn't need additional hardware. However, the exploit needs to have a WebKit entry point so the XFlat exploit will work and that the PPPoE exploit will not work with it." And so if you're kind of wondering what that means, it means is that PlayStation 4s that are running on things like 5.05 or 6.72 that don't need an additional device such as the ESP32 or one of these Luckbox devices for the PPPoE, it means that those are going to work right out of the box. And then for the rest of us that are on maybe firmware such as 9.00, that one, we will be using the ESP32 type of devices and again, WebKit. And then for those that are above 9.00, there won't be anything that you'll be able to do because those do require PPPoE, which doesn't get initiated through a WebKit exploit. Now, there was some mentions in here on how to uninstall it. And basically they talked about, removing the hard drive, resetting it to the factory, in order to get rid of it. Obviously, that will probably get better as time goes by. And it says, if your console has internet available, the bolt-on will automatically update if changes are published on the GitHub repo. So that is going to be very nice because you will be able to update this. And this is basically going to be maintained through a GitHub repo. Now, he states right here, it works on PS4 to the latest firmware. And a lot of people, I believe, read that as, okay, this is working on 11.50, so Alizif has an exploit that the rest of us don't have. And maybe that is the case, but I believe what they were referring to here is at least with this method, they've at least tested it on 10.50, and as long as, again, it is WebKit, and maybe we have another kernel exploit out there somewhere for 11.50 plus, then it should just work. The rest of this is basically a bit about when it was going to be released, and then it kind of ended until we heard from Alizif today, and it was this message right here, and it stated, "It's not custom firmware." It said, "No features of the exploit hen will change, just how it's being launched." So again, as a recap, 5.05 to 7.55, all software, no external device needed, which was exactly what he was stating just right here. Now, the next one with 9.00, you do need that external device, such as the ESP32-S2, mainly because it has to automate that process of inserting and ejecting the USB drive. And then for 9.03, all the way basically to 11, it definitely won't work because PPPoE does not use a WebKit entry point. Now, there was a few more updates. The first one was that it should work on a PS5 3.x to 4.x, but I'm not working on that until the PS4 one is 100% polished. And again, with the release, there's pretty much no idea when that is going to come out, and that it does state here there is a certain reason you'd want to use it on 9.00 with an ESP device. I can't really say much more without disclosing it, but hopefully, as I said just a moment ago, we'll get another WebKit plus software kernel exploit chain for the PS4 now that we're basically at a soft end of life. So that is the latest and greatest information that we have up at least to this moment. So some of my thoughts here to kind of wrap up. Obviously, I think this is great for folks to have this option. It's better than not having it, correct? I can tell you the way that I use my PlayStation 4 today, and it is really using one of those LuxFox or AliExpress devices. And I don't really do anything. Once I turn on my PlayStation 4, it's already got the Ethernet cable connected and it's plugged in all the time with USB. And so if I turn on my PlayStation 4 console, it's automatically jailbroken right now for me. So I don't have to do any additional steps in order to get that to work. Now, I know that for folks that's using 9.00, you're still going to have a device with the ESP32, but I do see this being especially beneficial for those that don't have to use hardware in order to jailbreak their console, such as those 5.05 and 6.72 systems. Anyway, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? I appreciate you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Michael, out.